Trundle taken off the board. You are expecting something like an early rotation of something like the Olaf, perhaps even the Skarner as well. We saw a lot of priority on it yesterday in our third place decider. G2, by being red side, they're forced into this Swain ban, but also a respect ban in the Xayah.
Have to see G2 with the last ban here. Caitlyn is still left open. We know Reckless can play it, even though we haven't seen it that much from him during the actual split. Could be a choice for Fnatic, unless they're looking at something as like a Tahm Kench pick, which will be very valuable between the two teams.
Couple seconds left for that first pick priority. Obviously, jungler's all taken out the pool, and it will be the Braum locked in for Hylissang.
Oh, they were watching a splash yesterday, I guess, with Kissing early picking Braum every game. This is not something that should hurt G2 too much, because Vadidas definitely preferred the Tahm Kench whenever he had the chance to play it.
I also wonder here if Fnatic are hoping that G2 go for something like the Caitlyn, try and get that early lane dominance down in the bottom lane. We saw Ryze pretty much taken off the board throughout the semifinals and yesterday in the third place decider, and now it's going to be in Perkz' hands, one of his most comfortable champions from the regular season.
If you are Fnatic, and to try and explain the first pick Braum, one of the things they do like is when Hylissang can try and make some plays. They play a lot of these comps where he's allowed to roam, he can then connect, you know, a bit of CC onto one target, and they can single down one member. But Tahm Kench is here to try and counter that as much as possible. And the Ryze pick, we talked about mid lane being undecided. Ryze is one of the strongest picks in the current meta, especially if you play around him. But that's a unique AD carry for Reckless.
Unique indeed. Most played AD carry for Reckless in that Tristana, and I've heard so many people say when you get it, it's GG already.
Well, we'll have to see if G2 can handle it, given that looking at what's available right now, a lot of jungle bans, this could be an opportunity for G2 to lock in the Kha'Zix, but instead, they're looking for a little bit more engage in the Zac.
Trying to match as well against the Sejuani tankiness from both junglers, scaling on both sides, but Reckless Tristana, this is a pick a lot of teams ban away. It's actually the most banned champion against Fnatic in playoffs because, yeah, you don't want to deal with it. On G2's side, I think they're saying we know he's going to play it if it's open. We can draft around that. Strong scaling on their side. A lot of mobility from a Zac, and then of course Tahm Kench ulti plus Ryze ult. You can port your entire team from lane to lane, trying to make plays while Reckless is scaling.
And now I wonder if G2 are going to look to try and get a bit of lane dominance of their own. Remember that in the early laning phase, Tristana can be pushed around. Champions like Jhin and Caitlyn are both stuff that Yanan loves to play and could go for.
Yeah, and we saw Yanan dominate on that Jhin earlier here in playoffs. There's a good chance he wants to grab it for himself. Synergizes nicely as well with things like Zac, who can jump in from long range, and you can pick people off.
And we talked about Wunder playing carries. Look at the 3 carries that have now been banned away. Camille, Fiora, and Gangplank. It feels like they're trying to pressure G2 onto something like a Sion so they can answer them with a choke.
And if Wunder's playing a tank, we might see Yanan on a more scaling AD carry, where he becomes the one they actually play around in the late game. They already got the Tahm Kench to protect in the laning phase, and that's what we're getting now with this Jinx here. So they're simply saying, we realize there's a chance we have to play tank top, so we need Yanan to be the big man.
Oh, interesting. The decision-making here from G2 will explore how they make that Jinx work. For Fnatic, how do they round out their team composition? We're going to see what Caps and Bwipo are going to play.
Well, right now they've got Engage with the Sejuani, and they have decent follow-up with the Braum as well. They're looking for something safe to go into the Azir. Talia could work here for Caps if he wants to try and bring a bit of wave clear and roaming pressure. The alternative, of course, is the Orianna, should he want a little bit more laning power.
I love this pick, and I especially love to see it in a game 1 if he locks it in, because if you win with Aurelion Sol, the enemy team has to respect it in every single pick and ban phase from here. But it's gonna be Karma mid lane for Caps instead. Looks bit of a change.
Yeah, Fnatic looking to play entirely around Reckless this game. They do still have decent push in the middle lane.
Gentlemen, I see 2 team compositions that seem pretty focused around their AD carries as one of the pivotal members in the team compositions.
And that's where initially we said Fnatic's bot lane should have the advantage. Let's see if someone like Yanan can change that in the first game. Of course, there is Ryze versus Karma in the mid lane, a ton of early game damage on both sides, but Karma still, when it goes full late game, it's more about the utility she brings and a bit of burst damage up front.
But I'm looking at this G2 composition and I'm thinking Jankos is going to want to gank Perkz. One of the big easy lane setups is in the middle lane. Looks like Caps isn't going to be running the cleanse. You do have the potential gank setup, especially with Zac coming from all these unique angles, the flash in from the Ryze as well. I see a lot of potential kill pressure, and maybe they want to put Caps in an uncomfortable situation.
We also saw Fnatic come in with a plan of remove carries from top lane, make it a tank v tank matchup. That favors Bwipo and and Fnatic, because then Wonder is not the one G2 can play around. Tank v tank top means we look for the other lanes.
Oh, looking at the other lanes and the question mark of this mid lane matchup, Karma into Rise. What a tense start to the EU LCS Spring Split Finals. Fnatic taking on G2. We'll see how the decision making works out in game. Just as a reminder to everybody at home, we will once again be running our POV stream. Which gets in just a moment as Grabs and Delafalco shake hands for the first time of hopefully many throughout the course of the day. There's your team compositions once again. Guys, jump onto Twitter, let us know your thoughts, and check out twitch.tv/RiotGames2 if you want to check out the POV stream for G2 Perks.
Ooh, that's going to be a fun one. In the middle lane, 4-time defending champion Perks, looking to make a 5th one here today. I know that Ocelot had a lot of confidence in his team in the dressing room earlier on today, and now we are getting into game 1.
We are indeed. Copenhagen, help me introduce game 1 of your Spring Split Finals. Ladies and gentlemen, let's set the scene. G2 versus Fnatic. All-time records are in favor of G2 Esports. 16 wins to 11. This is the first time they meet in a finals, and Deficio, we've had the pleasure of seeing these two organizations over many years, but this is the first time they meet in such a pivotal series.
Yeah, and a lot of people look at last year as the year where we would get Fnatic versus G2, but Fnatic never made it into the final. This year, however, whenever they play G2 Esports, they've won 2-0 in the regular season. Both games, fun enough, were with G2 winning early, but then Fnatic coming back late. This game here, there's a lot of focus now on especially the AD carries.
Yeah, because down in the bottom lane, Reckless, he has his comfort of Tristana. He's a guy that's willing to play and pick it. He's so confident in how he's able to execute it. And Hjarnan, during the regular season, did not really show the strongest of performances. Coming into semifinals, he really did step up. We heard a lot of praise from the other members of G2 saying how much he was able to carry the team. And now they're both on hyper carries. Both these teams are going to rely on them to be the big damage threats later on.
And before we get to the point where the AD carries can take over team fights, we look towards mid. We saw there with the graphic, we said it already coming into it. This is the matchup that's undecided for us. We cannot predict straight away if Caps will beat Perks or the other way around. A lot of it's going to come down to Jankos and Broxa. Broxa in the semifinal camped the mid lane, killed Jizuke from Vitality so many times. And it was not something we've really seen before. I want to see if that's the playstyle again for Fnatic, because they got the early damage from Karma.
And I love the development that Brox as a jungler has made over the last year, because you think back to when he initially joined Fnatic, he was this cool playmaker on champions like Lee Sin and Jarvan. He wasn't afraid to make those crazy plays, and over time, he kind of moved back from that, kind of filled this role of just being that supportive jungler. But recently, we've seen him grow into this, I can work with Caps, we can be an extremely strong duo, and it was a big part of their success in the semifinal.
It will indeed, and of course, if you want to see how Caps and Perks do in that lane, check out the POV stream. This is one quick reminder, RiotGames2. Heard a few complaints yesterday about being very grayscale. We'll see if that'll be any different today. Because of course we've touched on that 2v2, and we'll see how Jankos will impact those lanes. Jankos definitely a standout player, first time in the finals, and already being a little bit invaded on. If you look at the minimap, Broxa sitting just behind him on the Grump, and he's going to be challenging. There's not a lot of support from Fnatic, though. You can see first to move was Wadid.
One of the big issues with Zac is he does use a lot of his own health to clear through the jungle, so you can always feel confident invading onto a Zac, knowing that you have that health advantage, and with Reckless and Hylissang getting that early push, Broxa was able to get in, get a bit of vision, get that insight as to where Jankos was. Looks like he's going to go back to base and do his first buy.
Now, it is interesting we have so much scaling on both sides in the first game. Yesterday we had a lot of aggression, early compositions where junglers were ganking left and right. This one is tank versus tank in the jungle, tank versus tank in the top lane, and same for support. So there's a lot of focus on actually just kind of playing a little bit safer early and get a few items, get a few levels, except for just around mid. It seems to be the only lane where we could potentially get some 1v1 action.
And of course, playing the first game of a potential 5, feeling your opponents are playing the slightly, I'm going to use this term, and correct me if I'm wrong, slightly easier to execute team compositions. A little bit more linear than maybe some split pushing styles that we've seen in the past. It's a good way to break yourselves open into the game, and we'll see what Bwipo and Wonder can do as they will scale up and eventually become more impactful in the later stage.
You know, and it's interesting as well because I had an opportunity to chat with Bwipo a little bit last night, and he was telling me a little bit about all these top lane matchups and how confident he feels on champions like the Cho'Gath. And right now, with Wonder on that champion, they may be looking for a gank up top.
All right, Jankos, the First Blood King, looking to live up to his namesake. Stretching strike connects, will pull
nice.
Bwipo back. That's very nice. Elastic slingshot comes in, gets the knockup. First blood on the cards. Bwipo's going to go down, and G2 strike first.
Wonder on this Cho'Gath here. He had the counter pick. Yes, he's on a tank, but he's still able to do very well in this early laning phase. Because not only is he currently winning on CS, he had a lane that was pushing against him. Jankos timed that perfectly to appear on top side, and then they gank the young rookie from Fnatic.
It is so difficult for a Sion to play into this matchup. He cannot deal with all the sustain that Wonder's able to throw out, and as a result, he set up the lane nicely. They get this early kill. Jankos is the one that strikes first.
Exactly as expected for a man with that sort of title. I love that 8-1 win-loss for the Braum for Hylissang. We'll talk about that in a second, but just a well-executed gank.
Now for Broxah, he invested vision towards the bot side. He wanted to keep an eye on where Jankos was, but for Jankos, he knew that there was little vision towards the top side. Bwipo was overextended, and it became an easy first play.
And I love the fact that he connects the Q and then he waits. The flash then comes out, and then he pulls his move and actually smacks them together, so suddenly Bwipo cannot escape. He ends up going down. That's important for G2, also just the mental edge. Bwipo is the young rookie, the guy replacing Soaz, who's sitting with his injury, unable to play, and it's the first time this man is stepping on a big stage. There's a lot of pressure on him, despite it being a Wonder favorite matchup from the get-go.
You know, and it's funny because when you talk to him, he says that there's little to no pressure on him. Because
There's always pressure.
He is the underdog. No one's expecting him to perform, so he can just play his style, he can do his thing, and he feels like a lot of the blame isn't going to fall on top of him because when you're playing with Caps and Reckless, you're not supposed to be the star anymore.
Now let's see what sort of counterplay Fnatic have on the cards. The root will connect onto Perkz. He's still got Cleanse and Flash available. Winter's Bite from Hylissang flies a little wide, and Perkz holds his nerve, realizes there's no threat, and easily walks away.
Reckless left in the 1 versus 2. G2 aren't quite quick enough to find any kind of punish, and Jankos will end up going back to base. But this is something that you do often see a lot from Hylissang. He likes to roam around the map. DeFisher, you mentioned it in the draft. He is a playmaker, and he's definitely very confident on champions like the Braum. Very early on into the game, already looking for those roams.
Taking a look down at the bottom lane. We've actually not looked too much down here. It's been a bit of a farm fest. 60 CS for Reckless. He's gone back to pick up his Berserker's Greaves. Hyunan's already picked up the BF Sword in that matchup. And small advantage for Hylissang and Reckless, but they're getting to that point where ultimates are available and some plays can be made, because I remember Hylissang from playoffs, his Braum was extremely aggressive.
Yeah, and that's the thing we can see from him. As long as the team can follow, it looks really good. Gotta see what Jankos is up to after successfully ganking the top lane once. For now, it is just pure vision and continue farming. We'll find a few more wards on his side, but Reckless Tristana is the one I actually want to talk about real quick. Because a lot of people are like, why is Reckless so good at Tristana? What is he doing that's so special? I mean, first of all, he's just extremely good at playing team fights, which is where Tristana can shine. Second of all, she has a jump. She can be very aggressive in her positioning, and he can use that to find an opening for the first kill that gets him a reset, and he can just pop off completely. And it's very hard to then stop him.
Certainly is, but he has to get to that point. And one of the things you can also praise Reckless for is, regardless on how bad the matchup is, he always seems to come out very healthy during the laning phase. You only have to look at his CSD record to identify that Tristana is typically a weak laning phase champion, but Reckless never makes it look like that.
And I want to see if Fnatic in this game want to actually do what they do sometimes with this Tristana, lane swap with it later. Let's see what happens here, junglers.
Oh, Broxah's going to get jumped on by the Realm Warp. Oh, beautiful ultimate! Stops Perkz the moment he arrives. And that's the mechanics that Broxah showed up with on the EU LCS stage. G2 do not find a second kill.
G2, they're trying to be proactive though, looking to punish Broxah as he's moving through his own half of the jungle. Realm Warp being used very early on, and unfortunately G2 are not able to find anything, so Fnatic continuing the stall. Remember, a lot of this composition revolves around Reckless. He is one of the main damage dealers. When you aren't on this Karma, you're going much more towards a poke support role rather than a big damage dealer like Ryze.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of Karma players still build a ton of AP. It's not the old like Athene's Ardent Center rush instantly. It is like you get your tier, you fully stack it, you upgrade it, Death Cap comes in fairly quickly as well, and you get a ton of AP in the mid game. So your poke damage is insane, but as you highlighted, Vedius, once the actual fight breaks out, when it's 3 tanks and a supportive mid laner, yeah, it's about the AD carry.
And when you got Reckless on your team, you absolutely want it to be about him. All right, let's take a look. Jankos with another gank. Gets the chilling smite down. Stretching strike connects once again. Pulling Caps backwards. There's the let's bounce. That's going to deliver Caps to the mid lane. Caps survives a hell of a long time. To the Caps escaped. How did he do that?
Caps actually gets out of that situation. It looked like such a well-executed gank from Jankos, but Caps survived.
I was convinced he was going to die 3 separate times. He's cheeky enough to even teleport back to the mid lane and even get some damage
Going
down
for a trade, Trevor.
Perks. Gets the root down.
Even gets the cleanse. He was worried because he saw Broxah coming in from the flank. He knew that if he didn't get out of this situation, he could be in dire straits. Caps, beautiful execution from him.
All the action early, it's Jankos setting it up from G2's side with the Zac. It's what we often see when Zac gets picked, doesn't get shot down in the early game. He's so active at finding different ways to appear in these lanes. I think Jankos, man, yeah, for sure, he was like, we got it. Double flash to try to finish. I think Caps just shielded himself in time to stay alive towards the end. So 2 big summoners blown on G2 side. Of course, the same for Caps.
So 10 minutes into the first game, G2 with a small gold lead, nothing to speak of. CS differences also negligible. Only Reckless with a small lead. He's picked himself up that BF sword after returning back to lane, and towers have not necessarily been chipped a whole lot, so we're definitely into this mid to late game team fight, team comp style.
But look at Fnatic, they've taken control over the bot side river. You would imagine that their initial goal is to go towards this Cloud Drake, an objective that if you get in the early game, does give you that extra bit of movement speed, makes these movements a little bit easier around the map.
What we typically see from Fnatic though, when Reckless gets a few items under his belt, is to start playing more towards his lane. Tristana is still one of the best at taking down early turrets. He has the attack speed to actually get a few hits off and then back away. We already saw Broxah down here, but he just recalled. If Caps can push in the mid lane, he can roam first. Perk should always be able to match though with the Ryze ulti. So it makes it a little bit easier for G2 to defend against Fnatic's potential siege in the bottom lane.
I'm just keeping my eyes on what Jankos is up to. We talked a little bit in the draft about how he could look to set up a lot of ganks around the middle lane. So far, he's found one successful gank. And given that there is no flash, I feel like a repeat gank in that area of the map would make sense. This time, I would expect Caps to not be able to get out.
We see one of the problems for Fnatic is warding around mid to protect him. Jankos is not spotted at the moment, coming from that top side. Caps is playing very safe. He's okay for now.
He didn't pull a trigger to Fishio. Jankos very, very active in the early game. We've seen multiple ganks while he's only secured 1 kill. There's a replay of the mechanics at the bottom of your screen. Just really well played.
Yeah, so keep an eye on the shield. It was used initially there. Karma gets also, I believe, the heal off of the W as well. And then just as they flash in, the shield just comes off cooldown once again. Good management of his abilities to get the most out of that situation.
Question. Didn't even see.
Oh, Broxah even body blocked. Holy, that would have actually killed him as well.
Whether that was intentional or not.
We'll assume it was intentional.
Awesome. That was awesome. Broxah saving Caps' life. Now, I have a question for you, gentlemen. Broxah has been silent for 12 minutes on that Sejuani. His team is still even, 600 gold behind. That's not a whole lot to speak of. When does he start activating for Fnatic? I know we've talked about the Reckless 2-item spike. Is it really just that simple?
I think for him, if you look at G2's summoner spells, it is almost impossible to set up a gank of his own. There's cleanse in the mid lane, there's cleanse from the enemy support, and that support can also eat his AD carry in case he's the one getting hit. So it's very difficult for Broxah to be active. His job is mainly just to keep up in farm and experience, and then try to get vision down to spot where Jankos is going. But that does give some control to G2 Esports at the moment.
And that means they get the dragon. There's no contest here. If you look at the vision from Fnatic, there's nothing to spot it out. So the first dragon of the finals, the Cloud secured amid some golf claps here in the Royal Arena, and Jankos has the potential of another gank, but there's some respect from Reckless and Hylissang. They're back away.
This is a very classic game 1 of a final, where both teams are taking a little bit easy. No one is going for something completely crazy in the early game. Of course, also with scaling on both sides, the way you want to play these compositions is technically just farm up early on. The top laners are trading a little bit, but not a whole lot should happen from it, seeing as there's no junglers nearby.
So we're talking about scaling. We're heading into the mid-game. Do you prefer one team scaling over another? To Fishio, what do you think?
Oh, I think with Tristana for Reckless on one side, but a Jinx on the other one, it gets very evenly matched. The problem, of course, for Fnatic is that Karma's own damage, because she only has one real big damage ability to use, is definitely not the same as a Ryze. But if Karma with her utility can make sure that someone like Reckless gets enough time to actually kill the front line of G2, then that might not matter at all. Jankos is trying again though.
Yeah, a little bit opportunistic as Caps is able to use that movement speed to escape, throws down the shield and the E and clears out the wave, still holding his own. I guess it comes down to playstyle then, because of course you've got the Feast on the side of G2, so they have a little bit of an advantage in that Baron pit.
Yeah, and also, just touching on that Feast around, we got to look at Hylissang in the middle lane. Once again, looking for another row.
All right, let's take a look. Perks has already sidestepped Hylissang's Winter's Bite, and both of these mid laners, man, they are not going to give up easy kills. It has to be earned, it has to be taken on this stage, because neither of them have made missteps just yet.
Look how immaculate the farm is as well. 14 minutes, 50 seconds, and we're already cresting 160 CS across all of the carries. But it's fascinating, you know, we are here in the final between both G2 and Fnatic, something that many fans were hoping for, and for a while we weren't able to get, but now it's here, and you just have to imagine the pressure that's on some of these shoulders, because for G2, something that Ocelot said at the beginning of the show was there's a lot of new players for G2 on their side. The first time they've made it to the final, Jankos' first final, he had that semi-final curse that he was dealing with for such a long time. Hjarnan and Wadid, the new bottom lane that were coming in for Sven and Mithy. So much is on the line for so many of these players to live up to G2's long championship record.
And I mean, Hjarnan stepped up last weekend. All split long was a little bit of a second fiddle to the rest of the team. It was Wonder and Perk show a lot of the time. But in the semi-finals, Hjarnan's Jhin, as you mentioned in Picks and Bans, and just his performance all series long, really exceptional. He's going to need another outstanding performance because of the seriousness of the matchup and, of course, his opponent.
So now we've just passed the 50-minute mark. You can see some of the main key items have been completed, and I feel like both teams are looking for a fight.
Well, they are indeed. Reckless is the one that starts it. He goes forward with that rocket jump. Hylissang splits up the team. He's already thrown down that Glacial Fissure. Let's bounce. Pulls back two. This is a bad fight for Fnatic. Hylissang's already down. Brox is running for his life, and he'll get dropped. It's a double kill for Hjarnan. Raining down the rockets onto Fnatic as Reckless and Caps are running for their lives. Jankos gets two, pulls them back with the stretching strike. Defensive flash from Caps, and G2 find another, the third of the fight. It's a whitewash, and G2 are crushing Fnatic.
And Fnatic started this fight here. Reckless jumped in first, but then it was G2 reacting instantly, and they knew they could win it from the get-go. 2 kills now onto the Jinx. We just had a slow early game. Everyone just matching farm. But we talk about the scaling, we talk about a Jinx. She's now getting fed.
Now it's Hjarnan and Wadid that go up to clear out the control ward, but Fnatic are in a position where they think they can collapse. It's a 3-on-3 initially, but then look at the Ryze ultimate and the TP coming in from the flank. G2 just react quicker, and Reckless is forced out of the fight from the get-go.
And also with Perks matching with that Ryze ult, we talked about that earlier, how he can just follow to one of the side lanes, and he's there instantly. And this Zac pick from Jankos as well, setting up so much CC. They all need to pull back 2 members of Fnatic so they can't flash away to safety. So far, the Zac has been huge for G2 Esports.
And now that is a 3-0 fight for G2 Esports. They've gotten a very solid early game lead, and a lot of the gold is funneled into Hjarnan. DeFisher, you mentioned it. Trevor, you were just talking so much about he is an individual that eyes are on. Hjarnan versus Reckless, the battle for the better Swede. So far, it's Hjarnan that has the advantage.
And let's see if we can keep it up, of course, because G2 have got that 2,000 gold lead. They've got a 4-kill advantage. But no towers have fallen, just that single dragon. The map is still wide open, and that is standing gold for both teams.
And we're just kind of waiting for another one, like the one we just saw here. Another big team fight, but both teams are fully committing with everything. Now, of course, the TPs will be on cooldown, so it might take a while, unless Jankos wants to do something. They have their winning bot lane with the Jinx. They're already on the way to pressure the turret. Fnatic looked for another pick, but Perks had his flash.
Yeah, he did have to flash out of that situation. Always means that there's another potential gank opportunity. But while all that action was going on, Hjarnan was just beating his way down onto the turret. Will secure the first objective of the game in favor of G2. And now you would imagine they're moving up towards the top side, where we actually see both top laners having a bit of a back and forth.
Yeah, they're fighting a fight between 2 turrets, in fact. And Wonder might be in trouble as Brox is leaning that way. But as it stands, the arena here in Copenhagen is being brought to a standstill. There's a lot of Fnatic fans here, and they're going to have to rally behind the squad, who are falling behind as we get to 20 minutes.
Now, the one thing I will say about G2's comp is they do have a lot of magic damage on their side with the Cho'Gath, the Zax, the Rise. You can see early magic resistance seems to be the name of the game for Fnatic, as Jankos looks for another gank.
All right, he's flashed in, uses the Let's Bounce. Realm Warp will deliver perks into the mid lane. Glacial Fissure buys some time from Hylissang. Now he's the man that's in trouble. That Unbreakable will eventually break when 4 members are running you down. Perks gets his second of the game and turns the attention to the mid lane tower. There's no defense from Fnatic.
It's another play set up by Jankos. He's the one going aggressive. It looked like he was all alone, but then instantly, Tahm Kench ulti and Ryze ulti and 4 members of G2 show up in that mid lane. Yanin and the rest of the team, they're going straight towards the Rift Herald.
G2 utilizing both these globals to very quickly move from lane to lane and punish the slight mispositions that Fnatic are setting themselves up for. Hylissang gives away his life for his mid laners, and it will allow G2 to secure the Rift Herald.
Some of the big picks we looked at coming into the matchup was things like Ryze and of course Tahm Kench for with the, because they offer this global here. Reckless is going all in.
Oh, Reckless is engaging once again. Jankos waiting on the sidelines, but look, Wonder is taking so long to go down. Glacial Prism will buy some time. Devour from Wadid capes him alive to escape.
Fnatic are really trying to get something here. Reckless jumps forward again, but he's not strong enough yet to take down a tank. Let's see the play from before. This is a 1v2 initially, but this is why Ryze and Tahm Kench are so good, because now you can send multiple members to the mid lane.
So easy to collapse. Good ulti there from Hylissang, but then he becomes the target. He does have his flash available, decides not to use it because he thinks that the collapse is going to come down regardless. It means he will still have that later if he wants to go in for one of those flashy plays that Hylissang loves to make.
And early we looked a little bit at the team fight setup between the two teams, as you often talk about with these big hyper carries on each side. It's all about killing the tanks first.
Yep.
When you have a Cho'Gath Feast on one side plus 2 damage dealers in Perks and Yanin, who are very good at just killing a front target, that's going to be superior compared to Fnatic's comp, which is a lot more focused on Reckless alone, just trying to find one target to get that kill. And it's going to take longer for Reckless to kill a tank compared to G2.
And I feel like that if Fnatic want to be the ones to have favorable setups in these fights, they need to utilize the poke that Caps will have once he completes the death cap. Fisher, you talked about how you typically do see a lot of AP being built on these mid lane Karmas. If you don't utilize it before the fight, his team fight value is largely diminished.
Yeah, and I also think we might see an Ardent Sensor come in from him, even though it's not the pure AP build, just because he needs to buff up Reckless even more.
Of course.
So that is definitely a potential choice for Caps. That could be very smart.
All right, we'll keep our eyes on that itemization. Still have to finish that death cap, gentlemen. And while we're looking at the map, G2 using the Rift Herald very effectively. Already taken the top tower. It's 3 towers to 1 in favor of G2. Nearly 4,000 gold lead for the defending champions. And they're off to a very strong start, led by Jankos' early game impact. And the question we had, gentlemen, will the teams be leaning into their strong side, playing around their weak side? For G2, pretty obvious answer for Jankos. I'll play all sides, because he ganked everywhere.
Now, what's interesting about this is when we had Reckless and Caps on PGL last week, something that they said was that in the past, G2 struggled to close out games. And it was often that G2 would draft these compositions where they'd have a carry top, they'd have the carry mid, and that they would find a lot of early game advantage because that's what their comp allowed them to get. But then they struggled to actually end things when their composition wasn't really designed for team fighting. This time around, G2, they actually have a good team fighting composition. They found themselves with an early game lead. And this time, I don't think Fnatic can just rely on the late game as they have done in the past versus G2 during the regular season.
Yeah, going to be very interesting to see the decision making, because now the Baron is an objective. Keep your eyes on that mini-map, as vision will become so important in setting up and playing around that objective. G2 Esports, they still maintain control right now.
Yeah, they're really far ahead in this game, also because their carries are the ones getting all the kills on their side. Wonder will struggle to battle against the cannon minion.
The most epic of all top lane battles.
Yeah, 2 banner of commands in the game already, both top laners. And actually, you talked about that early season games, Vedius, on how G2 got ahead early and then Fnatic bounced back. Take a look at the gold graphs of exactly how that looks.
And as Vedius highlighted already, G2 in these kind of games didn't have the superior late game against Fnatic. But it's different in this one. They have a Jinx on their side. We know Cho'Gath is so good at killing front lines in these big team fights. So G2 Esports are not going to get outscaled by Fnatic. And with them having this goal lead, as long as they play correctly, they shouldn't actually give Fnatic a chance to get back in the game.
That's the big question. Can they out-teamfight Fnatic? Even though they have a pretty significant gold advantage at this point, they have a very solid composition. Fnatic, you can never underestimate them when you get into that 5v5 scenario.
Absolutely not, especially when Reckless is on Tristana. Taking a look at the items though, a little behind. Ied, Shiv, and Zeal for Reckless. Going against the Hurricane and Rapid Fire Cannon for Hyanin. Void Staff picked up for Perks. So he's going to be hitting like a truck in these next team fights. You see the Realm Warp will deliver some problems for Bwipo, who has consistently been the target throughout the majority of this game already.
And G2 should get full mid lane control. They have the superior AD carry, they have Tahm Kench as well. You can sit there, save Hyanin if he's too aggressive, or use that Tahm Kench ulti now aggressively to the sides. So it's very hard for Fnatic to play the map. They actually have to just concede the side lanes against the Ryze and the Cho'Gath, and it becomes all about the Baron. G2, they're starting it now. Let's see if they want to turn for the fight.
Find out. Teleport's coming.
They can just
in.
finish.
They're going to rush it. They're going to rush it.
Instant Smite is available. Baron is already secured. Brox is now in the pit, but he's left alone. Glacial Fissure comes down as Wadid is going low. Going to get knocked out by that seismic shove. Here comes
it's a big one.
Fnatic may have found the fight. Jankos is going low. Cell division not yet popped. Bwipo's already killed the back line. Flash.
Look at Reckless.
Fnatic are chasing. They're trying to cuss G2. They've done it. Perks has got one back. This is a messy fight as Baron will only be on a few members. Jankos has escaped with his life, and Perks will be looking to run down. Gonna try to survive, but in a 3-on-1, it is a matter of time, and your MVP will close it out with Yellow.
What a huge fight for Fnatic. We were just talking about how you cannot afford to underestimate them in the 5v5, and G2, they were just grouped up in that Baron pit. It made it so easy for Fnatic to get the collapse, get the damage that they needed, and while they did not secure the Baron, they secured themselves 4 kills.
Well, let's see it one more time here. Perks' ult is not available. Otherwise, you normally kill the Baron and ult out with the Ryze and the entire team. But here it is now means they're stuck in the Baron pit. And look at the bottom of your screen. Caps and Reckless are completely untouched. The only members taking damage from Fnatic are the tanks in the front. And this suddenly means that G2, despite being ahead in gold, cannot win the fight.
Oh, and then you're just setting up so nicely for Reckless. He had the pentakill in his eyes, and while he did not get the last hits, he was able to help his team secure the winning fight. Only a single member walks away with the Baron on G2.
And it's very big to highlight that before this Baron was started, Perks used that Ryze ult to try and catch out a Sion. A little bit too over-aggressive, wasn't even close to actually getting him. That meant it was on cooldown, but when they rushed the Baron, just think about it, they burned the Baron, they 5-man Ryze ult out, Fnatic never gets these kills.
Chasing the kill ends up hurting them, but G2, they've grouped up. Only one member with Baron, it's Jankos, 1-0-5 on that. Zac playing exceptionally well. The siege is on, and the tower has already fallen. Keep your eyes on the minimap. Bwipo has got that unstoppable onslaught available, but not the greatest angle of entry.
He went to push out the bottom wave, hoping that that minion wave can take the tower as G2 just group up in mid. Fnatic don't feel confident to take the fight right now. 1 minute and 20 seconds left on the Baron. Fnatic could look for a fight, but Jankos is looking for one of his own.
That fight we had before here should be the most favored Fnatic fight we will get this game. One team is stuck in a Baron pit and they can't turn on your carries. That should not happen again. G2 are still in control, despite giving over some kills to the enemy AD carry. They're looking for another engage with Jankos.
Oh, the tension. The Alexis shot. Jankos is not fired just yet.
This is apparently not bronze solo queue where you face check everything.
You've got
Top tier quality.
You've got to show respect as well, but also Jankos has to be smart about his engage, because while he can create that kind of a distance between himself and the enemy team, the rest of his team can't always follow up on that. So he has to make sure that everyone else from G2 can follow up if he gets that kind of an engage.
Definitely the case. I mean, G2, yes, they're still in the lead. They got the gold from Baron, which means they are close to 4,000 gold up. Almost exactly, in fact. But taking a look at itemization really quick. Quicksilver Sash for Reckless. Keep himself alive with his 3rd damage item and the Zeke's Convergence as well. Locket of Iron Solari, so there's some tools there. And as we crossed 30 minutes on the clock, you're starting to feel that ticking time bomb of Ryze plus Jinx.
I think a lot of AD carries would not go QSS here.
I agree.
You have a lot of protection around you, but I've seen Reckless do this before when he's on mobile AD carries, because it probably makes him feel more confident in playing aggressive and being in the front. So it's a defensive item built to allow him to be more aggressive. Jankos is going in though.
All right, Let's Bounce is available. He's going to get rooted down. Just use defensively. Jankos pulls nobody back. This is a good start for Fnatic. Hylissang jumps onto the front line using that shield.
Oh, Yarden!
Sometime. Yarden is down! Reckless dunks him! It's a double kill for Fnatic, and they've got the advantage.
Whippo comes up huge, gets a knock-up onto Hyanan, and the rest of Fnatic collapse. They have their eyes on the Infernal Drake, and they secure themselves another team fight win.
Oh, Fnatic, that was a big one from them. It was even fighting, but we saw Reckless get a ton of time to hit the front end of G2 before we got any fire back from G2 Esports themselves, and suddenly it's Fnatic in control.
Gotta track what Wadid used his consume on, because that was gonna be the primary target to keep Hyanan alive. G2 ended up with a negative Baron power play as Fnatic have come back into this game strong.
G2, they were waiting for Yanan's flash to be ready, but it wasn't up for the fight. And then without the Tahm Kench, because he devoured Wonder to try and make sure he stayed alive, it suddenly meant that Whippo with the big knock-up can actually destroy Yanan.
Just before that fight, Ardent Sensor also picked up by Cap, so all the tools to play into the Fnatic camp. That gold lead is dwindling. Gigantic crits onto Hyanan as the tower is now being focused. 4 towers to 4, and Fnatic are clawing this game back from the early game deficit they found themselves in.
You know, and it's funny because we talked about how G2 have this team fight composition. They shouldn't fall prey to the mistakes of the past where they get these early leads and then they end up losing them. But let's keep our eyes on Wadid. You know, because he's going into the fight. The initiation starts from Jankos. The ulti from Brox actually lands onto him, but he thinks, oh no, I have to keep Wonder alive because he's getting chunked down by Reckless. But then he realizes, the actual carry that I need to protect ends up getting caught, and Fnatic are very quick to punish.
Gentlemen, can I just bring up a graphic we saw a little bit earlier that reminded me of how G2 and Fnatic games went?
And this is exactly what we were just about to talk about, right? The fact that G2 got this early lead, and in the past, their composition was a large reason as to why they ended up falling behind in the late game. But now, Fnatic are just finding these opportune fights and putting G2 in these situations that they're always the ones coming out behind.
But if you're G2 Esports, you can still mentally reset, tell yourself you have a great late game comp, you still have a Jinx on 4 fully completed items at 30 minutes. You can easily win the next few fights. Fnatic have gotten the advantage now, but that can swing right back to G2 Esports in the next team fight. Baron is spawning soon. We know with the Cho'Gath Feast, they can rush it down, either Ryze ulti away them, or look to turn for the actual fight. We have to see in the next one, because we know if Reckless gets caught, or if he's not allowed to deal damage, Fnatic, they won't kill anyone.
Yeah, definitely the case. And looking at the vision setup for G2, there's a couple of wards actually pushed into Fnatic's territory, so a little bit of early vision is 10 seconds away from Baron. Thank you, observers, for highlighting that one. And G2 still playing defensive. It feels like Fnatic have had to play into the darkness so frequently because of the fact they played from behind from the early game, but they haven't made many mistakes. They haven't overstepped or been punished despite the lack of vision.
No, they've been the one punishing the small mistakes from G2. The lack of flash from Hyanan, Wadid using his consume on Wonder to keep him alive, and then Hyanan being slightly out of position, allowing Fnatic to get that punish down. Now they're going for a play in mid.
All right, Hylissang's going to use stand behind me. Jumps up, gets the unbreakable. Gigantic shield teleports in the back end from Whippo. Flame Chompers might buy some time. Jankos is already going low.
Hyanan's dead!
Hyanan is dead again with flash and heal available. Whippo's looking to find a little bit more. A flash forward from Hylissang. Gets a Winter's Bite as Wonder gets shot down in the back end. The kill picked up by Reckless. Wadid not going to get knocked up, but it doesn't matter. 3 kills to Fnatic.
And this is the worst timeline for G2 as Baron is alive. Reckless and the crew have their entire team alive, but their eyes are set on that middle inhibitor.
They got some minions coming. I think they want to go straight for the Nexus here. Reckless on Tristana can kill these turrets so fast. Another option is just mid-inhib and Baron, but with 20 seconds still on Yanan, Wanda and Jankos even longer, they're looking for the finish.
The death timers are so high. Perks has to put on his blue suede dancing shoes to deal with 5 members of Fnatic. Wadid's going to help out for a little while longer, and Fnatic are chasing. It's Reckless that gets another, the 5th of the game. And despite losing early, despite falling behind, Fnatic fight back and strike first in the Spring Split Finals. They've not finished the game yet because Yanin and Perks, they're trying to defend.
Yanin!
How did they do it? That was my win moment. But Yanin will not go quietly. He flashed forward, continues to chase.
Gonna get the reset.
Looking for the rocket.
It's
Wanda!
Cho'Gath!
Here comes Wanda. Caps gets taken out. It's Yanin gets a triple kill, and we're not done.
Oh my god, G2! They're able to get the base defense. Yanin, when it mattered most, comes up clutch, and only Reckless walks away alive. Baron is up. Did G2 now try to go for the end?
They're going straight towards the mid lane at least.
No,
Perks is
no
here.
way.
Jankos is trying to stop a recall. He doesn't find Reckless, sadly, so Reckless is back in base.
Holy moly, G2, they're going to tank up the inhibitor turret. Keep your eyes on those death timers. 10 seconds.
They
for
can't, they
Boxer.
can't.
Reckless is already alive. G2 realize the folly and the braveness. They've peeled back for a safe Baron.
So they can still go for that Baron. Yeah, they have Feast available and everything, but it looked like it was over, and then Yanin shows up. Fnatic were splitting between hitting Champions and the Nexus, and this Jinx in the late game got enough time to get their first kill, and suddenly the Jinx pops off.
G2 now walk away with a 5-man Baron after getting a successful base defense. So at this point, Perks, you think he's going to die at this point. You think, oh no, there's nothing they can do, but just look at the damage coming out from Yanin, hitting onto the front line. He then changes his focus onto Reckless, and as Hylissang and Broxah try to defend him, they end up getting shut down.
Now we have to remember, both Nexus turrets died, as we just see Yanin here get that last kill onto Cap. So if you are G2, you're constantly thinking, okay, there is a chance they pop a Karma, speed up, and Fnatic just rushes into this base if Fnatic are caught, also if G2 are caught out of control. But for now, they are still sitting with the base behind them. Fnatic are starting the Infernal Drake, and G2, they're not contesting, they're not risking anything.
Gentlemen, 2 Infernal Drakes for a team composition that does have slightly less damage built in. Could help out, but just how much? It's 35 minutes on the clock. It's an even gold game, and there are super minions pushing into G2, but Baron empowered minions pushing towards Fnatic.
All right, let's see what Fnatic trying to do here. There's one outer turret left on the side of G2. They're currently hiding in the brush here with the tanks. I think Perks will get noticed. Fnatic will know exactly what's happening. Jankos checking. What a great first game. This is exactly what we wanted.
Please give me 5 of these. This is exactly what I want to shoutcast. Exactly what we want to see for a split final.
And to illustrate, this game could still go either way. The gold is dead even, but we're at a point where gold is going to mean less and less. The Baron is in favor of G2, but they do not feel confident enough to really leave their base when there is an exposed Nexus. The team fighting of Fnatic so far has come out on top because they've been the one finding those opportune fights. Crunching down on G2, who are trapped in the Baron pit, punishing the flashless Yanin in the middle lane. Can G2 finally find themselves a successful fight? One that doesn't involve their Nexus on the line.
For now, they're trying to stack even more armor because they know it's all about the Tristana hitting them in these fights here. Even Perks going towards Ninja Tappy. Chain Vest on his side. Both AD carries are leading the charge in terms of damage as expected. Of course, as we highlighted before here, the Karma does actually deal some serious damage with
sure.
her poke. She's just not great in the really the quick fights where it lasts like 5-6 seconds. She only gets off 1 Q. She doesn't really add anything else after that, but long, drawn-out fights with a lot of poking and continuing to buff up the team, she adds a ton of value.
And then, of course, there's the AoE shield as well. Mantra E, unstoppable onslaught from Wanda. He's going to be jumping in. Wanda not going to be the target just yet. Gets knocked up by Buipos. Buipos now running away. Stretching Strike going to be a little useless as the Glacial Prison buys some time. Still nobody caught. Extended long team fight. Exactly what Caps' Karma's looking for. But it was just enough to dissuade G2, push them back. This Baron buff has not equated to a loss.
No, G2 are just using it to defend for the time being. Just try and buy time for their inhibitor to respawn. Wait until they're in a state where they're in a better position to try and force some of these later fights.
Well, we keep seeing the team fights. Again, it's all about killing. Whatever meat shield is right in front of you. There's going to be a big blob on the side of G2 or a massive dinosaur, and you just hit him. You just try and kill him. And on the other side is this zombie dude, and of course, Broxah riding around on a wild animal. And it seems weird, but your job as an AD carry is just to kill whatever is right there.
You know, and we talked about how Wonder's ulti could be huge in helping that because it is the true damage. He will be able to chunk out a tank pretty significantly. But the other big thing in favor of Fnatic is the movement speed you also get from Caps allows Reckless to reposition and pretty much play as aggressively as he wants. Fisher, you talked so much about how he, as a player, loves to carry. He loves to be in these highlight moments. And when you have the support that you have from this Fnatic roster, you can't afford to just sit there and rest on your laurels because he's going to be looking to get into the backline and threaten whoever he can.
And I really like that Reckless is going Essence Reaver in this game. They're giving him more cooldown reduction on this AD carry just because so much of his damage comes from him correctly activating rapid fire. Just click the Q when you know you have a bunch of time to actually hit the tanks, and lowering that cooldown can be huge for Reckless specifically in terms of how he can actually kill a tank on G2.
Kjarnan picking himself up the Blade of the Ruin King to help a little bit with the shredding through the front line. We'll see how much of an assist that will provide him with as G2 right now defending their base. Fnatic is a 5-man group. They have set up a slow push in the top lane. I believe the wave is pushing ever so slightly in favor of G2 towards the bot, but Fnatic are the ones with priority over them.
Oh, Fnatic all of a sudden have been in control. They've taken charge of game one thanks to a series of team fights. If you looked at the first 20 minutes of gameplay, you think G2 have this game in the bag. If you look at the second 20 minutes of gameplay, you think Fnatic are going to have this game in the bag. And now as we get past 14 minutes in game one, a big team fight, a vision blunder, a setup around Elder or Baron, which spawn in roughly the same time, is what is going to determine the victor of game one in our finals.
G2 still hiding around, hoping someone maybe face checks against the Cho'Gath. Not happening. G2 will look at this game and be a bit sad about some of the fights that happened 15, 20 minutes ago where they actually were in control, but they were forcing and they were trying so hard to catch out someone like Hylissang. He's the Braum, he's the support. You end up overextending, going for him, and Fnatic punished them because of it. But because we had that big play at the Nexus from Kjarnan, there's still time for G2 to win this game. Almost dead even in gold. Double Infernal, however, for Fnatic's side.
And take a look at that 9th tower picked up by Fnatic. If you have just joined us, look at the minimap. Exposed Inhibitor and Nexus. G2 were able to defend their Nexus, much to my surprise, because of Kjarnan respawning and helping out Perks. But G2 are dancing on a razor's edge as Fnatic continue to pressure them. Right, 58 seconds for Baron, 40 seconds for Elder. Some vision in G2's territory for Fnatic, but neither of them have set up significant steps towards either objective.
It's really important to keep an eye on the vision control because Fnatic, by having all 3 lanes pushed up, they could maintain control over G2's half of the map. But with all the vision that they've now restocked themselves with, they can look to get mid-priority and start playing around either Elder or Baron.
You have to remember some of these AD carries in the late game. They can solo the Elder Drake. They have the lifesteal and the attack speed to just sit there, and while the rest of the team are keeping the other ones busy around mid, it is something we always have to look for when we have this stalemate around 2 big objectives. On the side of G2, they might look for something. Fnatic jumping in as well.
All right, Kjarnan sold his boots in favor of that Phantom Dancer. Let's see what damage he can put down or if he's caught out. Glacial Prisoner teleports to the back end. Fnatic, they've already got the passive from Jankos. The fight's not done yet. Reckless is being trying. Focus down from Perks. Perks flashes away defensively. Reckless gets him. Turns on the Innocence. That's a double. He's not done yet. Firing away onto Wonder. Looking for more. Winter's bite tags Kjarnan. Wonder survives for a few seconds longer. The bomb explodes. It's a triple. Has
He's going for the Penta.
Spring split MVP trying to find more. Doesn't want to go toe to toe. Shots back and forward.
He's going to kill it. That's the Penta.
Going forward. The quadra. The Penta kill for Reckless.
Reckless! What a hero for Fnatic! The superior AD carry comes out on top, and they're going for the game.
Ladies and gentlemen, in 42 minutes, Copenhagen, are you not entertained? Fnatic take game 1.
And this game showed exactly why Reckless are the MVP of